In this video, we're going to talk about 3 tabs that were taken out of the new workbook, but they still exist, so I thought it was important to talk about them. Those 3 tabs are in the Estimate Items section. So we're working now in the Hernandez project, and if you go to the Estimate Items tab right here in your Hernandez project, we're going to talk about these 3 tabs up here: the Components tab, the Supporting Events tab, and the Labor Minimums tab. Let's go to the Supporting Events tab first, because that one's kind of an easy one. When you go to the Supporting Events tab, the way the old book described supporting events was supporting events are those indirect but necessary additional activities which may be required to complete a task. So essentially those are tasks that are not really part of doing the job but still occurs in the workday. So things like setup, spillage, handling, cleanup, overspray, travel time, it's part of the workday but it's not really part of doing the job. And also in the Supporting Events tab are your waste factors. Remember we talked about 3 things that didn't have waste in Xactimate: carpet, vinyl flooring, and shingles. Everything else has waste in it. The exception of that was they also forgot to put clay tiles in the examples in the book. So clay tiles also do not have waste included in them. So remember to add waste to your clay tiles. But what we're looking at over here, if you look at the far right column, let me push that over to give us a little more room. If you look in the far right column here, you'll see your waste percentages, and you'll see it split up into labor and materials. So if you ever want to know what the waste percentage is in any item, just go to your Supporting Events tab, and like for example our demolition labor there has 33% waste. So the labor waste is going to be higher. You'll notice the material waste are lower, but you've got 15% waste there in your chemicals. You've got 10% waste in your wood floor. In your finished carpentry, you've got 5% waste. So that's where all your waste factors would be. And as the old X28 book said, it said the Supporting Events section in Xactimate presents the consideration given for loss of productivity and material waste percentages. So that's our Supporting Events tab. Now let's jump over to our Labor Minimums tab. Now the Labor Minimums is exactly what it says. They put in a minimum for every trade. And the reason is, if you'll just watch here, I'm going to come back to the Estimate Items. And I'm going to go back to the Items tab. And I'm going to go to the kitchen. And I'm going to pick this bedroom right here. Let's take something that we haven't put anything in. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type in drywall 1/2 inch. And I'm going to put in there like I'm going to replace a little 2x2 piece of drywall. Let's say that's all that the damage was. And when I put that in there, you'll notice, let me bring this over so you can see the line item a little bit more. You'll notice that we got a whopping $8.10 there. Now, no one that I know of is going to get out of bed and go to work for $8.10. So what they do, for example, Xactware calls up some drywall guys and they say, "Mr. Drywall Guy, what's the least amount of money that you'll get out of bed for and go to work? And how many hours a day is that?" And he says, "Well, I'm not getting out of bed for any less than $275, and that's for 4 hours of work." That's the labor minimum. So when you put in an item that comes up to like $8.10, it automatically kicks in the difference. And then as you add more drywall items and you get closer to that labor minimum, once you exceed the labor minimum, then the labor minimum zeroes out. So if it's under a certain amount, it's going to kick in the difference. And if you go to the Labor Minimums tab, you'll notice it just added this drywall labor minimum down here. And you'll see the number on the end there. That means that it kicked in an extra $286.65. Any line here where you see a number, so like for example that $88 that you see right there, that's for the finished carpenter. We didn't get to his labor minimum. The wood floor, it's zeroed out, so we exceeded the labor minimum. $139 here for the painter. Looks like we exceeded the labor minimum for the electrician. We added $101 for the plumber, $286. So you see your labor minimums right there. So now, if you don't want to pay a labor minimum, you can uncheck it. Like for example, let's come over here, and right now I've got $79.48 here. If I uncheck that $286, see how it just reduced the price here? Now I'm at $76.61. Now, why would you not want to pay for a labor minimum? Well, let's say, for example, that you're having a tile guy and he's replacing the flooring in a bathroom. You're going to put in your estimate, remove, detach, and reset the toilet. Well, a plumber's not going to come and do that. Chances are the tile guy's going to just take it off and put it back on when he's done. It's 2 bolts and a supply line. but there is a labor minimum in there. So in that situation, you might want to undo the plumbing labor minimum because you know the tile guy is going to do the job. Now, the other side of that is, can you have more than one labor minimum? Absolutely. Let's say that you have an electrician coming out at the beginning of the job just to disconnect the power because there's a lot of work going on, and then he's got to come back at the end of the job to reconnect the power. Well, 2 trip charges. He doesn't get to his minimum on either trip, so you're going to put in there a minimum for him to come out and disconnect and another minimum for him to come out and reconnect. You just want to explain that in a note. Now, how do you do that? Go to the Items tab, and you just put in there ELE for electrician, MN, and there's your electrical labor minimum. And then you could just put a note here to disconnect. Close it up, and there's your electrical labor minimum for him to come out and disconnect. And then you just put the same line item there and do it again to reconnect. Now, whenever you put a line item twice, Xactimate's going to ask you, are you sure you want to put that line item down? Because you've already got it. As a matter of fact, here, I'll show you. ELEMN. So now we're going to put another note here. See how it's saying electrical minimum already exists in the bedroom. Continue. Just say yes. To reconnect. And there we go. You've got your 2 labor minimums. Now let's talk about your Components tab. Your Components tab is right up here. And when you click on your Components tab, let's go back to the kitchen here. So we'll have more items. And the way they described the Components tab in the X28 book was the Components page displays the components that make up the line items in an estimate, such as materials, labor, and equipment. So it breaks it down into those 3 items, and this is where they recommend you change pricing. You can change pricing. If I go back to the Items tab up here, I can change pricing here in the unit price, but it doesn't really show how you're breaking it down. It doesn't really show how you're increasing it. When you go to the Components tab, there you can, if you just want to increase it because of material, let's say that drywall went up 30 cents a square foot because the hurricane just hit. Then you can just go in there, find drywall, increase the price of the drywall, and it doesn't affect your labor. So it's a more accurate way of changing prices, and that's where they recommend you do change prices. Let me show you an example of how adjusters use this Components tab, and it'll give you an idea of how it works. So let's go to back to our Items tab up here. And what I want you to do is I want you to go up to the bedroom upstairs. I put a couple of things in there, but unless you followed along, yours is probably empty. So what I want you to do is I want you to come up here to the search, and I want you to type in independent. And you notice all these independent analysis. Here you got one for wood, here you got one for the dumpster, here you got one for carpet, vinyl, and so forth. So let's pick this top one, the one that says wood floor, per specs from independent wood analysis. And select that item. And what that item is that item, let's say that you go into a house and you recognize the fact that that wood floor has to be replaced. But you don't know what the wood floor is worth because there's a gazillion types of wood floors out there. So by putting this line item down, you're acknowledging the fact that this floor needs to be replaced. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put it down, and this item includes everything except for the wood floor. So it includes the labor, it includes any nails, maybe glue if it's a glue down application. It includes everything except for the wood floor. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get a sample of that wood floor, hopefully out of a closet, not in the middle of the living room, and you're going to send it to a company that's going to analyze it. There's one in Jacksonville called ITEL that most people use, if not all. And you FedEx that wood sample to them, and the very next day, they're sending you a report telling you who made the wood floor, what style it is, and what it's worth, what it sells for. All that from just a sample of wood that you're sending to them. It's pretty impressive. Now, let's say that you sent a sample of that wood floor and it came back and they told you it's worth $8 a square foot. Now that you know what the wood floor is worth, and notice I've got a value right now without the wood floor of $624, $642, sorry, I read that backwards. So now that you know what that wood floor is worth, you're going to come back to your components tab and you're going to find that wood floor. And it put it in there based on that wood floor analysis. So make sure you're clicked on the bedroom and let's find that wood floor. And it's usually pretty easy to find because it'll be a 0 unit price. There it is right there. You see right there how it reads unit price, and right here it shows 0. So now that you know that it's worth $8 a square foot, you double click where it shows the unit price of 0 and then you put in $8. Then you hit enter and you notice it turns green to show that there was a change made there. Now when I come back to my items tab, I've gone from $642 to $2,072. So there it added the wood floor to the line item and shows an accurate price now. So you can see that that's how they recommend you change pricing. Even if you're not creating an item like the independent analysis or the wood floor, you can see how you can make a change in the components tab and it adjusts the line item for you. So if there's an increase in drywall or shingles or anything like that, and Xactimate hasn't had a chance to update the price list, then you can update it that way. And those are the 3 tabs that we wanted to talk about. I'm not sure why they took the explanation of them out of the workbook, but I thought they were still important, something you need to know as an adjuster, public adjuster, or a contractor. So we're going to end this video here, so we will see you at the next video. Well, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, give it the old thumbs up. I think it's down here somewhere. Or even better, subscribe so that you get to see any of the future videos that I post on here. Have a great day. We'll see you at the next video.